What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm joined again with Mobile Instinct. We'll be checking out the town of Centralia, or the town that was named Centralia. It's basically a ghost town. It's not completely abandoned. There's probably about 5 to 7 people still left, but we're gonna show you what happened to this town, why it's now basically a ghost town, and where everything took place, where the fire started. Just going to show you all around. And right now we're starting off at the famous church that was the inspiration for the movie Silent Hill. So this church is not abandoned. It's actually still active, and they never shut it down. It's always been active. It's far enough from the fires that they didn't have to do anything. It actually sits way up on the hill, and they still have their services here every Sunday. So now we're gonna head down into the town and show you where the mine fire started, and take it from there and go through, give you a whole tour of the whole town. So this is the Oddfellow Cemetery, and directly behind the Oddfellow Cemetery is where the people of Centralia would come and dump their trash. So before we go up to the landfill area, this all started in the very beginning of May of 1962. The people, they wanted to burn the trash and get it ready for Memorial Day, because a lot of people were coming to the cemetery here and putting the American flags on a lot of the tombstones, and just getting it ready for the annual parade that they would have through the town. So they wanted to make it nice and get rid of all the trash, and that's when all the problems started. Right up this road, this dirt road, is where the landfill was, and this was the area where the town would come and dump their garbage into a small pit that they had here. And that's just the way it was back in the day. There was no local trash pickup like we have back at our houses. But then once they would dump the trash in here and it got to a certain height, I guess, the local volunteer firefighters would come here and burn it down to nothing, and it was good to go. But once they ignited that fire, it burned really low to the ground and managed to seep through a little hole that was connected, and it went right to a coal vein, and I believe it was the Mammoth coal vein, which is huge and stretches for miles, and that was the demise of this town. So once the town knew that there was a very serious problem with the underground mine fire, they installed these vents, and these were vents that would help get rid of the toxic fumes that were pouring into people's houses, making them completely sick. And it worked. It was a great idea, but unfortunately, once the fire burned past this area, these now were holes, like air holes, for oxygen to go down and go down into further down into the mines and fuel the fire even a little faster. But these are all around the town, all over. Up here in the landfill, there's a couple of them. That one there is a little bit in the woods, but there's some up here that are full of graffiti. So when this fire started, it spread off into 3 different directions. Some of the sections, it spared the town, and some of the houses actually were not affected by the fire. And this became a big problem within the residents of the town. A lot of the towns, they felt unsafe, and they wanted the government to buy out the properties and for them to move, and for this town to be no longer, which it is now. And the other half of the people, they didn't want to move. They didn't want to leave. They wanted to stay here, and they did not see it being that big of an issue.
Is there a danger? I mean, the fact that the temperatures are so high over there, is there a danger?
There's a danger in certain parts, yes. Certain parts. The biggest danger, I guess, would be from the gases coming up, you know.
So right now we're in the woods right off the side of the road of Centralia, and as you can see behind me, the steam is coming out. It's not smoke, it's actually the very hot temperatures is evaporating the groundwater and causing the steam, but it's from the hot temperatures is obviously from the mine fire beneath our feet. And it's really cool. I have a gun and we're gonna get some temperature readings to see exactly how hot this is. I could feel the heat just coming out and just hitting me. It's pretty intense. So as you can see, it's just climbing 119.7, 118, 120. It's fogging up the camera now. But Chris got up to 123 degrees, and it feels you can feel every degree of that. It's like a sauna. It's like a natural sauna right here. It's pretty cool and eerie at the same time. You can even tell because of how hot that is, the steam is actually making the rocks sweat. Those rocks inside there are actually damp and wet to the touch. That is just really cool. Once you get a little thing of wind or air coming, it really starts bellowing out of there. It's so cool. Right there in that lot is where the old Coddington gas stations used to sit. In 1979, owner John Coddington noticed that the gas temperatures were reading close to 175 degrees. The gas station was the first building to be demolished in the town of Centralia. This here is another one of the vent tubes that was placed right behind which would have been John Coddington's gas station. So right now, where we are in what would have been Todd Dombowski's grandmother's backyard. Todd Dombowski was a 12-year-old boy who was playing in his grandmother's yard when he noticed some steam or smoke coming up from the ground, and he went to investigate it to see what was going on. And that's when he went over there, the ground opened up underneath him and he fell through a hole that was where there was a fire right underneath his feet. But he was lucky enough to grab a hold of one of these tree roots and was hanging on until his cousin pulled him to safety. I believe this is right where the hole was. You could still see what remains of the little fencing here. There's a little mesh fencing. I've seen news articles with that fencing right around the perimeter over here, and it is sunken down from up there. So this might have been where the hole was that he fell through. And of course, with time, it's been filled in, and obviously the government and the town has filled it in a lot more. But I believe this is where it actually was, and this is what gave this issue of the mine fire nationally known.
Valentine's Day, 1981, 12-year-old Todd Dombowski was playing in his grandmother's backyard when the earth opened up below his feet.
I seen smoke, and I thought I didn't want my grandmother, to go over near because she's elderly, and I was worried about her, so I went over to see if it was the mine fire, and when I did, I just fell right through.
So this is Route 61 here, and the road would have kept on going straight through there, but as you see, there's a giant mound of dirt and the big sharp turn signs where they had to reroute the highway, and that's the old graffiti highway here. And this is what's left of the graffiti highway here. You can see it has the 2 lanes and the center divider. So this is now what was the old Route 61, and then was famously known as Graffiti Highway. And as you can see, it's just mound after mound of mounds of dirt that was dumped here. And the reason why all these dirt got dumped here is during COVID, people were having big bonfires, having big parties here on the highway. And basically, the road was bought out by somebody, and so the state doesn't own it. Some other person did it, and they were trying to help by social distancing and didn't want people to be gathering and have large gatherings, but people were coming here because it's a really cool place. So they were having bonfires, and the police were coming, and fire companies were coming here to try to put the bonfires out and telling them, yo, you just can't be here and things. So he just got sick of the issues that they were having with people coming here on the highway when people were supposed to be social distancing, and basically buried the highway in all this dirt. So this is Railroad Avenue in Centralia. As you see, this road doesn't look like a lot of the other roads in the town, because this one had railroad services through here starting in 1865 and all the way up to 1967, hence the name Railroad Avenue. The tracks were right in the middle, and the lanes for cars were on the sides here. But I believe right here is where the old train station was used to sit. But in the 1950s, cars and trucks started becoming really popular really fast as a means of ways to travel. So they weren't using the trains as much as they were normally, so they ripped the tracks up and tore down, which I believe this was the where the train station used to sit in 1967. Just 5 years after the mine fire started, they ripped all this stuff down. But this is still kind of a little interesting piece of history through this area that you can still see that where the trains actually used to come into the town, because at one point the town actually had, I think, close to 3,000 people living here at its height. People from all over used these rail lines to come here and work in the coal mines that were actually not too far from here. So this is basically now what this town now looks like. It's just empty roads that lead to nothing. They go around plots of land, and the only thing really remaining from the houses are just old foundations. Here's a set of steps. Here's a set of steps that would have led to someone's front door of their house. But once they got relocated and moved, and the houses sat empty, the government came in and flattened and leveled their houses, and now each thing is just an empty plot of land where the roads go around. Even the street signs have now been taken away. All that remains is stop signs for each of the roads. As you can see, these are one of the very few remaining homes still left in this town. One of the last people that just loved the town so much they decided not to move and just stick it out. So that is another one of the last remaining homes in Centralia, and as you see, it looks like it has a bunch of chimneys on the side of the house. Those aren't chimneys, they are actually steel I-beams covered in brick to help support it. That was a bunch of houses that were all connected together, and when they tore down those other houses, that house became a little unstable, so they used steel I-beams to support it so it wouldn't collapse on itself. And then they just covered it in bricks to make it look a little more presentable, a little more nicer than just steel rusted I-beams holding the side of the house up. But very interesting look, and pretty cool to see one of the houses still remaining. So we're on some of the back roads here. I'm not sure the name of this street without looking it on Google Maps, but this is a pretty cool view here. It does make me wonder, walking through here, if any of the people that used to live here actually ever returned here and see what it's like now, or see where they used to live and how nature has just completely taken over where they used to live. Or are they just too heartbroken and don't want to relive the whole memory over again? Here's an old fire hydrant. Here's like an old shed that's remaining on one of the properties. Don't know why this was still standing and hadn't been knocked down along with the house. But it's cool to see somewhat of a structure to give it that ghost town look. There's even some old bottles left on the property. Here's another one. That one's a kind of a cool looking one. I know some people are into collecting old bottles like that. It's glass. Really neat. So right now we're at the fire department, police station, and borough building of Centralia. So this was the borough building, and next door was the police station of Centralia, and the fire company is on the other side. I'll get a closer look of that in a bit. Check that out. That is really neat. It says keep Centralia on the map. And what they mean by keep Centralia on the map, there was a time where after they basically took everybody and relocated everybody that was willing to go from the town, they took the zip code off of this, and it was no longer called Centralia, and the very few residents that were still remained living here had the address of the neighboring town of Ashland. And those people, they were upset about it. They wanted to keep it as Centralia. They wanted to keep, like that says, Centralia on the map, and they eventually gave it back to them. And so now it's back to being a town. They're the last remaining citizens of the town. But this is a really cool building. It's, like I said, it's obviously not used anymore. So I do believe that the fire company section here, though, is probably still not technically operational. I mean, there's nobody hanging out here, but if there ever was a situation where they needed to be, volunteers can come here, and there is a fire truck still sitting in here. So we're currently now in St. Ignatius Cemetery. In June 17th, 1948, United Airlines Flight 624 left San Diego and was headed to New York when the plane crashed just outside of Centralia. On board was a total of 43 people, most of them being Hollywood actors, a Hollywood theatrical producer, and the co-founder of Esquire magazine. And the pilots almost hit a mine colliery that was nearby, and they were trying to land on a big pile of coal dust to let it down safely, but they missed the coal colliery and ended up striking a 60,000 volt power line, which caused the plane to explode into a million pieces. And none of the bodies were intact, and a lot of the miners came out of the mine and the colliery and help try searching for the bodies and help with any kind of rescue efforts, really. When the plane exploded, some of the passengers' body parts and remains could not be identified, so they were all placed here under this grave. Nothing that really has to do with the mine fire, obviously. That happened well before the mine fire took place, but just a very interesting fact about this area. So we were just about to leave St. Ignatius Cemetery when I happened to look down and noticed the grave of the last person who was the mayor of Centralia, Carl T. Womer. This is his grave here. 91 years old. And it also looks like he was served time in World War II, an Army veteran. And a little fun fact, my very first video was here in Centralia, and it was at Carl Womer's house. He was one of the last remaining houses that was still here, still standing before the government came in and knocked it down and flattened it. It's no longer standing there now. I can show you where it was. We'll walk over there and show you where it stood. But that was my very first YouTube video, and Chris's very first YouTube video was also here at Centralia. So it's kind of a little interesting fun fact about the both of us. This is actually where Carl Womer's house was. It's now filled with cars. Even though it's now basically a ghost town, a lot of people still come here to Centralia to just walk the road, see what they could find, or a lot of them also have quads and dirt bikes that they like to drive around the town, also go exploring. So, but that's where his house used to sit. So if I'm not mistaken, this is the sewage plant that was for Centralia. As you can see, it's definitely abandoned, and it's right outside on the outskirts of Centralia, probably not even a mile outside the town. No, and it's definitely abandoned, as you can tell. So I climbed the ladder here and giving you a better shot of the gross sewage water that's in these tanks.
For years, something on it, we could see what it was.
This is all part of the sewage plant, I guess, that helped it run. So after further investigation, it's a mine pool dewatering plant. Whatever that means. I'm not sure what that means, but it's not a sewage plant like what I originally thought it was. But that's going to be it for today's video. Don't forget to check out Chris from Mobile Instinct. I'll have his video linked in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.